Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Femi. I want to ask a question to Brother Rainer now, because the topic tonight is light and darkness. So far we have talked about the light. So, Brother Rainer, can you tell us what is darkness, please?
I think I make a very simple analogy, which is often quite used as the as an image for sin. And if you imagine standing yourself, it's a sunny day, you see the sun standing above you and the sunlight pours down onto you. You are standing in sunshine. Now, if you want to create darkness, you have to put something in between you and the source of the light. And this something which goes in between you and the source of the light, and that creates darkness. It creates shade. There's less light underneath. It can create so much darkness. In fact, if you are enclosed, so shut off that you are in utter dark. Let us say you are in the sunlight, but you go into a very dark room. The room is dark. There are no windows. Nothing where you can look out. Nothing which lets the light penetrate into that room. Then you are in utter darkness, although the room itself or the house is standing in the light. Now I'm using an example from our plane here, from life on Earth, and they are very good because we are here on Earth. And we are adapted here on Earth that we can learn from here. That is best adapted to our understanding. And so it's a very simple example. So what can come in between the source of light to which our longing goes or our yearning goes to come closer to the light? Every human being has this yearning to come closer, to search the light inside him, and has the natural desire to follow that urge. And if some other human beings, or you can also do it yourself, do something which cuts you off from the light, you start living in you start having a more shaded experience. You are more cut off from the light. You are not walking anymore in sunshine, but you're walking under clouds. And it's physically we can see that very well today, that in Europe at least we have for weeks now or for months now lived without seeing the sun just about 4 hours in 2 months of sunshine here. And it's a very miserable state. But spiritually seen, of course, we live constantly in darkness. And we have to understand, we have to remove those things which cut us off from the source of light. We have to remove those things and re-establish that connection with the light. And I think I leave it now to the others. One thing is for sure, the light has never disappeared. We only cannot see it. We have lost it in a way. The yearning is still there, and we live in darkness. Most of humanity nowadays lives in darkness, cut off from the light, having no connection anymore to the light. Now, I hand back now the conversation. I've given one aspect, and the real question is now, how did we cut ourselves off from the light? Why do we have to live in darkness? Why can't we find the light anymore? And I hand it back to you, Saad.
Thank you, Brother Rainer. That's really very good what you have said. Brother Femi is indicating to me he'd like to sort of continue the discussion, so I'm going to ask him to please do go ahead, Brother Femi.
Yes, it's just to again still put a slightly different perspective on this issue of the light and the darkness. As we said earlier on, and as we know from the physical, from this earth where we all live, the light and the darkness, we refer to them as opposites. So the darkness is the opposite of the light. Now, I explained earlier on that the light is essentially God. It's the Godhead, the creator of the creation as we know it. And all the attributes of the creator, which we all associate with goodness, with growth, with joy, with upliftment, and so on and so forth. All these are attributes of the light. Now, keeping it simple, so what is the darkness? The darkness is the opposite of the light. So in simplistic terms, we can say that the darkness is in effect that which opposes the light, that which is not in tune with the light. And of course, again, in any religion, as I explained earlier on, there is a concept of creation, there is a concept of the creator, and there is the concept of a devil, or some people call him Lucifer, some people call him Satan. And so some people refer to him as the king of darkness, or the prince of darkness. So to keep it simple, the darkness can therefore be described as only that which has the audacity to oppose the light, not to be in tune with that which is the will of the light. And fundamentally, that is the darkness. It is, however, important for us all to bear in mind that the darkness is not the same thing as evil. Evil arises as a result of the activities of human beings through falling into the temptation that the darkness presents our way. But the darkness fundamentally is that which opposes the light, and that one can say is embodied in Lucifer, the fallen archangel.
Thank you very much, Brother Femi. I want to bring in Brother Gregory now into the discussion. Brother Gregory, we've talked about light and darkness, and Brother Femi has mentioned that the darkness is the opposing or opposite of the light. So somehow that seems to, and he's also mentioned about Satan and Lucifer. So I want to ask you, Brother Gregory, are there like two powers which are fighting each other, like, God and Satan? So is there two powers fighting each other? One fighting for good and one, well, Brother Femi mentioned that darkness doesn't mean evil. It's only the human beings who actually do the evil. So let us maybe keep evil out of it. So are there two powers, Brother Gregory? One is light and like the Creator, Almighty, and the other one, Satan, as the Lord of Darkness, you could say. So that's to Brother Gregory.
Well, thanks for all the descriptions. I'm afraid the description profiled is faulty, so very faulty, and that is why there is a confusion. There is but one power. The question fundamentally is, what is the light? The light, looked at from an earthly point of view, illuminates. It shines. The light is a substance. Or one may say the light is substantiate. from a spiritual standpoint of view. The light is the natural radiation that streams out of the power, which power has always been, which power illuminates, and at the beginning was always there in the divine kingdom. Truly, it was when the decision was taken and we had let there be light that creation came into being. But precisely the light is substantiate of the natural radiation that streams out of the power. This light itself does not act arbitrarily. This light itself has to act in such a way that there is a will. This will is in the operation, hence the work in the light of truth. So on the one hand we have the light, on the other hand we have the truth. So we have the power, the light, and the truth. These form the Trinity that we always talk about, and it stands. How does the darkness come in? Whenever there is an activity started from anywhere which does not accord with the will, which is the truth, that casts a shade in the weavings, hence darkness. Like Brother Rainer mentioned, something shades, like a cloud, comes in between. But wherever that weaving is in accord with the truth, then that light is able to stream unhindered. Therefore, it is now possible to understand the likes of Lucifer, whose activity were not in accordance with the will or with the truth. Hence, they or he himself now forms a source, like a source where one will refer to as darkness. However, one should not forget that Lucifer himself uses the same radiation, which has now been distorted. This radiation being the natural radiation that streams out of the Almighty.
Thank you, Brother Gregory. Did anybody else want to say anything further on that, Brothers Rainer or Femi? Did you want to follow from that?
Yes, I think that we got now a better understanding through what Brother Gregory said. There's not really an opposing force, and also if you look onto the picture here on Earth, if I want to create darkness, it is simply the absence of light here on Earth. If I go into the room, there is no darkness itself. As soon as light comes, the darkness disappears, but I can shut myself off from the light here in the gross material and live in darkness. And there is only one, there's also here on the gross material, of course, there's only one force, and that is the radiation coming from the physical sun. And like this, it is also in the big picture of creation. There's only one power. That power, only one original power and everything is through its radiation. And even this gigantic archangel with that incredible power, everything but the devil, it's a very majestic figure of an unbelievable power, not to be compared with the power of a human being. Only this archangel can ever dare to oppose in some way the will of God, or try to oppose it in the way and lead humanity astray. And he has done it very cleverly, just by changing a few little things. The horrific things which ensued from that have all been done by human beings. The whole ugliness and detestful things and shameful things the human beings have done. Lucifer just changed a few little settings, and then evolution took on its course, and one of the settings Lucifer changed was that he enticed the human being to rely on his intellect, on his intellectual capabilities. And we know now from many programs before that the intellect is a product of the brain, of our bodily brain, out of the stensis coke here on earth. And of course, because of that, it's a product of our physical body, of our physical brain. It only can understand earthly things, and it will then fight against anything which is beyond its limits of understanding. And everything which has to deal with God, or that light, is of course beyond earthly space and time, and that intellect will fight it. But that was a very little thing in the beginning, I don't know when. And through evolution, this brain has this part of the physical organ, that physical organ, the brain, has been more and more developed. And today we act almost, we subjugated ourselves and are ruled, all our behavior is ruled and determined by what we intellectually think. And of course this is wrong, and through this intellect that is one of the major forces, or one of the major reasons why we create all this confusion, and why we live in this very dark state, in darkness. We then have created the darkness and the terrible situations and the wars and the pogroms, and live then suffer then from all kinds of illnesses and depressions. But again, this is just, Lucifer didn't do that. Lucifer just said, rely on the brain. The brain is a power of understanding. That was in the Bible, that Adam and Eve picture. A lot of things are interwoven there, and one of the things is eating from the tree of science. And the tree of science, of course, was the intellect. Okay. I rely on the intellect. I rely more on the intellect. I enjoy that power of understanding. Of course, it's a very good thing, that power of understanding, of intellectually understanding something. But to listen to the will of God and tune into the vibrations of the will of God, that requires much more. That requires something which we say with listening to of the heart. That requires a spirit which is alive, but that spirit is now walled in, lives here on earth. It is walled into our physical body through this intellect. Nothing from the outside can reach the spirit, and the spirit cannot see anything. And if the spirit moves, we hardly understand anymore what is moving inside us, what is that strange voice, which then after some time makes itself felt as a depression, or as some, we feel depressed, we feel heavy-hearted, if we are too long cut off of the light, because our spirit we need the light, and we need to understand again the will of God.
Thank you.
Now there's another thing I just want to mention, how Lucifer changed a few little things. That's also in this Adam and Eve.
Shall we come to that, Brother Rana, shall we come to that a bit later on? I want to just...
Okay.
There's something more I'd like to say. Yeah, so thank you. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the spiritual discussion program on Tuesday night. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abrushin. And the topic of discussion for tonight is light and darkness. We'd love you to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're contacting us from outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Brother Femi, we've just been talking about Lucifer and his effect on man and or humanity, and obviously he's considered to be the Prince of Darkness. But I want to understand, why did he do that? Because there's a story from the Bible and even in the Quran where we know he's an archangel, and he's basically come to help. His task is to go and help man on the earth, and for some reason I don't know. I want to ask you, why did he turn away from that? Why didn't he was there to help man? So what happened that he turned away from that?
Okay, thank you for the question. Before I answer that question specifically, following on from the explanation that Brother Rainer gave, I would first like to look at that from a slightly different perspective. So the question you asked him at that stage was, are there two powers? Is there the powers of the darkness, and is there the power of the light? So are there actually two independent entities that possess their own power? And the simple answer to that is no. Power, all life is from one source, and that one source is God, the Almighty Father. However, the fundamental thing which must be understood, in addition to of course the fact that God is light, is that the power, the light streams that flows from the divine source right through to us down here on earth is actually neutral power. And we human spirits are endowed with a unique quality which we call the free will. So through our free will, we have the ability to choose how to use that neutral power. And so we could use it for what we call good, or we could use it for what we call bad. So fundamentally, there is only one power source, and that power source is neutral. And that power source comes from God the Father. Now, one other thing which must be borne in mind in terms of the power is that if this neutral power is actually used for good, being that the nature of light itself is goodness, then that means that the power cannot be diminished. Whereas if it is channeled into what we would call dark uses, then the power that is contained within it is diminished, which is again the reason why, generally speaking, wherever there is a conflict between goodness and badness, or good and evil, goodness always has the the higher possibility of overcoming the evil, because the power that is contained within the power that is contained is not diminished where it is being used for good. So, coming with that addition, and coming to the question that I was asked, which is, why did Lucifer choose to become the tempter of mankind, especially since he was actually given the task of helping mankind to develop and to become perfect, so that they can go back to where they originated from in the spiritual. Now, as was explained earlier on, God the Father resides in the divine realm. The divine realm has been there from eternity to eternity. Creation, which is where we reside, which came into being as an act of the Creator, is not eternal. It is here for... Sorry. When I say creation is not eternal, I'll re-clarify that. Creation, as we said, has different parts to it. There is the spiritual kingdom, which is directly linked to the kingdom of God, which is eternal. And then there is the material world, which is where we are now, where we all come to as human spirits to learn and to develop, so that we can go back to the spiritual kingdom. That part of creation is not eternal. Now, Lucifer was from outside of creation. He was from the divine region as well. The Almighty Father is the ultimate in the divine realm. However, there are also other beings. There are other beings that reside within the divine realm. There are angels, there are archangels, and Lucifer happens to be one of the angels within the divine realm. When creation came about, and the world of matter, as we know it, came about as well, for human beings to be able to come in here, make their mistakes, learn from their mistakes, become stronger, become clearer, and be in a position to go back to where they originated from. Lucifer was meant to be here to help us. However, as a direct consequence of our weakness, as in we keep making the same mistakes over and over again, there was a sense of repulsion in him as to these creatures that now inhabit a part of creation and cannot even tell their right from their left, so to speak. In his knowledge of how creation works, and in his knowing that if we actually do not pull ourselves together to be able to be that which we should be, then eventually, as part of the disintegration of the part of creation that is not eternal, that we would also be destroyed in that process. He then had the objective of effectively tempting us mercilessly so that we continue to make mistakes, and possibly more horrible mistakes, and find ourselves in a scenario where we basically get destroyed, or we go through what is referred to as spiritual death. So, Lucifer fundamentally now is the enemy of mankind, because his objective is to get them annihilated, and out of that lack of love that he has and harbors within him, he is again opposing the will of the Creator. Because the will of the Creator, the will of the light, the will of the light is for human beings to develop in creation, to become stronger in creation, and to find their way back to the spiritual realm. Lucifer is opposed to that. He wants human beings to be lost in creation, so that as the non-eternal part of creation goes through its disintegration, they also get trapped in there and they get destroyed. And unfortunately, we have all been accomplices in actually helping Lucifer to attain his objective, and we will be the ones that would suffer for it.
Thank you, Brother Femi. I want to ask Brother Gregory the next question. And Brother Gregory, we talked about the light, the darkness, Satan here, and looks like we are stuck in the middle here as human beings, with the Satan doing his best to bring us down. So, and also we are supposed to be, as it says in the Bible, made after the image of God, or people can say children of the light. So, in a way, we human beings are turned into, let's say, light beings, or, be with the light, let's say. So, how can we, Brother Gregory, find our way to the light? Because Brother Ryan has mentioned that we are living in darkness here in spiritual sense, not in the material sense or physical sense. How can we, Brother Gregory, find our way back to the light with the Satan sort of doing his best to block us? Is there any help we can receive? And in all this darkness that we are surrounded by, how can we save ourselves, basically? That's to Brother Gregory.
Apart from God himself. In our at the the other spheres of at the bound creation to come. Thank you.
I want to we've talked about the light. Something's happening.
Very It's a sunny day.
This light is gone. Okay. So loud.
And this
So when you put them all on full, that is never long for so all that is right.
Yeah.
was
However, one should never forget that
It's recording. It's recording.
along the line to assist man to understand the laws of creation and to swim in them arise.
an utter darkness.
One of the greatest that came in was Christ himself, who explained the laws of creation and showed how they swing with the law. He himself being the personal
In the mic, and I mean in my head.
And they are very
So help has always been there. Only those who swim unconditionally
Can you both hear him?
and know
Yeah.
Can you hear him in there? Can you hear me?
to which our long
Thank you, Brother Gregory. I wanted to ask my colleagues, is there anything they would like to read for the listeners from the Grail Message
and if
tonight, which is light and darkness? I just want to check with anybody. Brother Gregory, is there anything you have for the listeners?
He's low. He's low. He's low.
Okay, no problem. All right. Okay, I think Brother Femi wants to say something.
off from the light.
Yes. So this is a paragraph from a lecture
Right.
titled "Let There Be Light," because I think it is very important that we actually have
For months now.
perception of what happened there. So, the paragraph goes as follows. Thus, God not only uttered the word, "Let there be light," according to human conceptions,
We have to
it was simultaneously a deed. This was the great happening when Emmanuel was sent out or born out from the divine sphere. The placing out of a light part from the primordial light in order that this part might radiate and illuminate independently beyond the direct radiation of God.
now.
The beginning of the great development of creation was the simultaneous consequence of the sending out of a part of Emmanuel. So this paragraph basically clarifies the process that led to creation as we know it coming about. The God, the Father, allowed a part of himself, which we refer to as Emmanuel, in this paragraph, to be placed independently at the boundary of the divine realm so that creation could come into existence. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Femi. Dear listeners, if
We said earlier
the Grail Message or get more information
from this
on Google, In the Light of Truth, the Grail Message by Pushin, or you can also go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, message, MESSAG.com. You're listening to Bless Radio. It's a special discussion program. The aim is to introduce you to the Grail Message, and the topic for discussion tonight is light and darkness. Dear listeners, we'd love
joy,
questions or comments. The number to contact us here,
so forth.
it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're contacting us from outside of UK, it is 0044
We can say that
9 444
that which opposes
31366. So, Brother Rainer, I think you're next, and I want to ask you,
of the creator,
really,
a devil.
you know, we've talked about this conflict between light and darkness. Is that going to continue forever? And if not, how will it carry on? And how would it end? So that's to Brother
Will be described,
between light and darkness. Is that going to carry on forever?
which has the
If not, if it'll come to an end, how will it come to an end? And yes, that's to Brother Rainer.
Thank you for the question. I think I've got an echo now.
Oh, all right.
raw soul.
We can hear you. Go ahead. We'll keep silent. Please go ahead.
Not the same thing
Just let me.
rises
We are mixed. We are talking here about
activities
subjects. One subject is the act of creation, which centers on this
but the dark
on this word in the Bible, "Let there be light."
is the light.
The other part of the
Did in
concerns that will,
Thank you very much.
and we are longing for, but we do not find our way.
Talked about light and darkness, and
That's
Femi's mentioned that the
now, and I think Brother Gregory
light. So
concentrated, of course, on this light-darkness
Lucifer,
of the human being now. And
two powers,
of course, the question is,
God and Satan.
will that be?
One fight.
Will we be forever in this state?
Darkness doesn't
Actually, will we be?
to the east
And
part of it. So just the
go too much.
light and
There is an end to everything.
the other one, Satan,
We, or
as you could say.
Lucifer, has changed a few
Thanks for
wrong principles or applied wrong principles.
description profound.
A lot of this, although we have
So very
Lucifer trying to
fusion.
lead humanity. There was
Please, what is the light?
should follow Lucifer. want to pursue the right path, and all the archangels of the group
illuminates.
Against it. Even this
The light
which stands outside of creation.
substantiate
Outside of the
from a spiritual standpoint.
creation. And of course everything
The light
creation too. I will not go,
creation that's
but the sun will not shine anymore
which
in time, and humanity
always been
has a
are illuminated
here on this earth we know,
and in
and that the earth will disappear.
was always there
We know with the earth
kingdom.
now
When
something is going on. I think everyone knows.
had let there be light
Into the films today,
came into being.
artists perceive the vibration.
Precisely the light
We are on the point
substantiates all the
being of
out of the power.
of being eliminated,
Light itself,
and
not arbitrarily.
now
This light itself has to act
or back of the light. You know,
the will.
he first had to attack,
Is
go back to the light. So the first
hence the work
attack, the light, bring
truth.
of all was of course,
We have the light. On the other hand, we have
and
we have the
of course he had to be.
and the truth. These forms
He bought
that we always talk about.
it and
How does it
find
whenever
distorted that
there is an activity
in theology
from anywhere which does not
because
God with the will, the truth, that
he misses that
casts a shade in the will,
of the
hence darkness.
forward.
Brother Reiner mentioned
Any kind
something shades like a cloud comes,
going on
but wherever that wave
uh,
is in accord with the truth,
in his
then that light is able to strengthen
presumption
that.
to something we
It is now possible to understand
and to take
of Lucifer, who were not in accordance with
can teach other people
the truth. Hence,
the truth.
they or he himself
Not one human being
now forms a source, like a source
or endowed
as darkness.
or
However, one should not forget
the same capability
Lucifer himself,
more mature than us.
radiation, which has now been distorted.
The same maturity.
This radiation being the natural radiation that streams out of the Almighty.
So
Thank you, Brother Gregory. Did anybody else want to say anything further on that, Brothers Reiner or Femi? Did you want to follow from that?
yes, I think that we got now a better understanding through what Brother Gregory said. There's not really an opposing force, and also if you look onto the picture here on Earth, if I want to create darkness, it is simply the absence of light here on Earth. If I go into the room, there is no darkness itself. As soon as light comes, the darkness disappears, but I can shut myself off from the light here in the gross material and live in darkness, and there is only one, there's also here on the gross material, of course, there's only one force, and that is the radiation coming from the physical sun. And like this, it is also in the big picture of creation, there's only one power. That power, only one original power, and everything is through its radiation. And even this gigantic archangel with that incredible power, everything but a devil, it's a very majestic figure of an unbelievable power, not to be compared with the power of a human being. Only this archangel can ever dare to oppose in some way the will of God, or try to oppose it in the way and lead humanity astray. And he has done it very cleverly, just by changing a few little things. The horrific things which ensued from that have all been done by human beings. The whole ugliness and detestful things and shameful things the human beings have done. Lucifer just changed a few little settings, and then evolution took on its course, and one of the settings Lucifer changed was that he enticed the human being to rely on his intellect, on his intellectual capabilities. And we know now from many programs before that the intellect is a product of the brain, of our bodily brain, out of the stensis coke here on earth. And of course, because of that, it's a product of our physical body, of our physical brain. It only can understand earthly things, and it will then fight against anything which is beyond its limits of understanding. And everything which has to deal with God, or that light, is of course beyond earthly space and time, and that intellect will fight it. But that was a very little thing in the beginning, I don't know when. And through evolution, this brain has this part of the physical organ, that physical organ, the brain, has been more and more developed. And today we act almost, we subjugated ourselves and are ruled, all our behavior is ruled and determined by what we intellectually think. And of course this is wrong, and through this intellect that is one of the major forces, or one of the major reasons why we create all this confusion and why we live in this very dark state, in darkness. We then have created the darkness and the terrible situations and the wars and the pogroms and live then suffer then from all kinds of illnesses and depressions. But again, this is just, Lucifer didn't do that. Lucifer just said, rely on the brain. The brain is the power of understanding. That was in the Bible, that Adam and Eve picture. A lot of things are interwoven there, and one of the things is eating from the tree of science. And the tree of science, of course, was the intellect.
Okay.
I rely on the intellect. I rely more on the intellect. I enjoy that power of understanding. Of course, it's a very good thing, that power of understanding, of intellectually understanding something. But to listen to the will of God and tune into the vibrations of the will of God, that requires much more. That requires something which we say with listening of the heart. That requires a spirit which is alive, but that spirit is now walled in, lives here on earth. It is walled into our physical body through this intellect. Nothing from the outside can reach the spirit, and the spirit cannot see anything. And if the spirit moves, we hardly understand anymore what is moving inside us, what is that strange voice, which then after some time makes itself felt as a depression, or as some, we feel depressed, we feel heavy-hearted, if we are too long cut off of the light, because our spirit, we need the light, and we need to understand again the will of God. Now there's another thing I just want to mention, how Lucifer changed a few little things. That's also in this Adam and Eve.
Shall we come to that? Brother Ryan, shall we come to that a bit later on? I want to just...
Okay.
There's something more I'd like to say. Yeah. So thank you. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the spiritual discussion program on Tuesday night. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abrushin. And the topic of discussion for tonight is light and darkness. We'd love you to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're contacting us from outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Brother Femi, we've just been talking about Lucifer and his effect on man and or humanity, and obviously he's considered to be the Prince of Darkness. But I want to understand, why did he do that? Because there's a story from the Bible and even in the Quran where we know he's an archangel, and he's basically come to help. His task is to go and help man on the earth, and for some reason I don't know. I want to ask you, why did he turn away from that? Why didn't he was there to help man? So what happened that he turned away from that?
Okay, thank you for the question. Before I answer that question specifically, following on from the explanation that Brother Rainer gave, I would first like to look at that from a slightly different perspective. So the question you asked him at that stage was, are there two powers? Is there the powers of the darkness, and is there the power of the light? So are there actually two independent entities that possess their own power? And the simple answer to that is no. Power, all life is from one source, and that one source is God, the Almighty Father. However, the fundamental thing which must be understood, in addition to of course the fact that God is light, is that the power, the light streams that flows from the divine source right through to us down here on earth is actually neutral power. And we human spirits are endowed with a unique quality which we call the free will. So through our free will, we have the ability to choose how to use that neutral power. And so we could use it for what we call good, or we could use it for what we call bad. So fundamentally, there is only one power source, and that power source is neutral. And that power source comes from God the Father. Now, one other thing which must be borne in mind in terms of the power is that if this neutral power is actually used for good, being that the nature of light itself is goodness, then that means that the power cannot be diminished. Whereas if it is channeled into what we would call dark uses, then the power that is contained within it is diminished, which is again the reason why, generally speaking, wherever there is a conflict between goodness and badness, or good and evil, goodness always has the higher possibility of overcoming the evil, because the power that is contained within the power that is contained is not diminished where it is being used for good. So, coming with that addition, and coming to the question that I was asked, which is, why did Lucifer choose to become the tempter of mankind, especially since he was actually given the task of helping mankind to develop and to become perfect, so that they can go back to where they originated from in the spiritual. Now, as was explained earlier on, God the Father resides in the divine realm. The divine realm has been there from eternity to eternity. Creation, which is where we reside, which came into being as an act of the Creator, is not eternal. It is here for... sorry. When I say creation is not eternal, I'll re-clarify that. Creation, as we said, has different parts to it. There is the spiritual kingdom, which is directly linked to the kingdom of God, which is eternal. And then there is the material world, which is where we are now, where we all come to as human spirits to learn and to develop, so that we can go back to the spiritual kingdom. That part of creation is not eternal. Now, Lucifer was from outside of creation. He was from the divine region as well. The Almighty Father is the ultimate in the divine realm. However, there are also other beings. There are other beings that reside within the divine realm. There are angels, there are archangels, and Lucifer happens to be one of the angels within the divine realm. When creation came about, and the world of matter, as we know it, came about as well, for human beings to be able to come in here, make their mistakes, learn from their mistakes, become stronger, become clearer, and be in a position to go back to where they originated from. Lucifer was meant to be here to help us. However, as a direct consequence of our weakness, as in we keep making the same mistakes over and over again, there was a sense of repulsion in him as to these creatures that now inhabit a part of creation and cannot even tell their right from their left, so to speak. In his knowledge of how creation works, and in his knowing that if we actually do not pull ourselves together to be able to be that which we should be, then eventually, as part of the disintegration of the part of creation that is not eternal, that we would also be destroyed in that process. He then had the objective of effectively tempting us mercilessly, so that we continue to make mistakes, and possibly more horrible mistakes, and find ourselves in a scenario where we basically get destroyed, or we go through what is referred to as spiritual death. So, Lucifer fundamentally now is the enemy of mankind, because his objective is to get them annihilated, and out of that lack of love that he has and harbors within him, he is again opposing the will of the Creator, because the will of the Creator, the will of the light, the will of the light is for human beings to develop in creation, to become stronger in creation, and to find their way back to the spiritual realm. Lucifer is opposed to that. He wants human beings to be lost in creation, so that as the non-eternal part of creation goes through its disintegration, they also get trapped in there and they get destroyed. And unfortunately, we have all been accomplices in actually helping Lucifer to attain his objective, and we will be the ones that would suffer for it.
Thank you, Brother Femi. I want to ask Brother Gregory the next question. And Brother Gregory, we talked about the light, the darkness, Satan here, and looks like we are stuck in the middle here as human beings, with the Satan doing his best to bring us down. So, and also we are supposed to be, as it says in the Bible, made after the image of God, or people can say children of the light. So, in a way, we human beings are turned into, let's say, light beings, or, be with the light, let's say. So, how can we, Brother Gregory, find our way to the light? Because Brother Ryan has mentioned that we are living in darkness here in spiritual sense, not in the material sense or physical sense. How can we, Brother Gregory, find our way back to the light with the Satan sort of doing his best to block us? Is there any help we can receive? And in all this darkness that we are surrounded by, how can we save ourselves, basically? That's to Brother Gregory.
She has the power to tune into the vibrations of the light, and then would pass on this to the male part of thing, which I said is the amplifier, which leads lots of electricity, lots of power, because it starts amplifying that signal and starts pushing air around and turns those electromagnetic radiations into sound waves, which are just vibrations of air. And that vibrations of air is a hard work. It needs lots of energy. And that's the male thing. We push the thing out into the gross material creation. And if you look at life here on Earth, you will see in every machine this principle of sometimes this is separated in different machines, and you can also so separate the tuner, and you buy the tuner, and then you buy your hi-fi equipment, you buy the amplifier. It's a separate component, but they work together. But no amplifier, all the amplifier needs something which picks up something. It might be a record player, it might be a tuner which picks that up from the airwaves. You need the sensitive part. Without this we are lost. And women have to recognize they are absolutely necessary, because we need again this part which picks up vibrations from the universe and picks up vibration from the will of God. We need something urgently. We need woman so that she can tune into the vibrations of the will of God. And then she senses which way to go. And the decision, she gives them the rough direction where humanity gives the, we would say, in the strategic direction. The short-term things man always tries to work towards the aim, but she shows the way by picking up the will of God. And she is specially endowed to do that. And it's also the fascination. Woman will always be fascinating and attractive to men. She has got this attractive power that she pulls men away from just caring about earning money. There is more to life than earning money, and that's why the woman has this wonderful attractiveness, and she can attract us back. She goes towards the luminous height, and she has the splendor of paradise about her, and this beauty attracts man, and man will follow. In that sense, man will follow and the woman leads. But both parts are necessary. I think that clarifies it for a little bit to the listeners. And yes. But I think surely we come back to this point in later discussions.
Yes, thank you, Brother Rainer. It's really very helpful what you have said there. You know, you could say the strength and the role of woman, which is to tune in, and the role of man, where is to follow the signal that the woman picks up, you know, in order to fulfill, you know, what is required. Now, I need to apologize that there's a listener who sent a question about half an hour ago, and I really didn't see it until just now. And right now the question looks completely out of context with the discussion we are having at the moment. But I really do want to let this question be sort of dealt with. So this question, I'm going to go and put it to Brother Gregory. Brother Gregory, I'm going to read the question out from the listener. They're saying, when human beings tempt others to sin, they must suffer the law of reciprocal actions and pay for this. So does this same law apply to Lucifer? Must Lucifer not also suffer from this same law? And this is from a listener called John. So I'll just repeat the question to Brother Gregory. So I'm going to slightly reword it because I think it doesn't quite make sense at the moment. So I'm going to say the question is this, Brother Gregory. So when human beings sin, they suffer under the law of reciprocal action, and so they pay for that sin. But does this same law not also apply to Lucifer when he does which is what he did, is to tempt man? So should not Lucifer also suffer under this law, just like man suffers? That is to Brother Gregory.
The laws of creation are universal and apply to every creature that is in creation. Therefore, the law of reciprocal activity or reciprocal action also applies to Lucifer, just as it's applied to Christ when he came into creation. So if the volition of Lucifer is to tempt men such that they will take the wrong direction. Then therein lies the responsibility which he himself must bear. And the reciprocal action, according to the will of the Almighty, will mete out that which he himself deserves.
Thank you. So what you're saying is that Lucifer also must experience the law of reciprocal action, just like any human being has to.
Like we kept saying, the laws of creation apply to everything within creation.
Right.
Since Lucifer came into creation and in his activity violates the law, then the reciprocal action must also apply to him. There are no exemptions. When Christ came into creation, though we are talking of divinity, he himself had to undergo the laws, had to fulfill the laws of creation. He was born like every other one. All right? He hungered like every other person. He walked like any other person. It was not said because he came from outside of creation, the laws of creation would not apply to him. So, whoever is in creation must obey the laws of creation. Lucifer is not an exemption to that.
Thank you, Brother Gregory.
Can I just add something?
Yes, go ahead, Brother Rainer. Yeah.
Of course, as Brother Gregory said, everyone is subject to the will of God. And Lucifer too, that's quite true. And if that person reads the Grail Message, or he's already read of the Grail Message, the question shows that quite clearly. He finds already the answer there. Lucifer has been cast out from the vicinity of God. I call it just the vicinity of God. A vicinity which man can never enjoy. Man is much too weak because of the difference in origin. He's an archangel. He was always in the closest vicinity of God, the only and he has been cast out by applying his wrong principle of temptation, which was initially just tempt human beings, and the good human beings become much stronger by resisting that temptation. Unfortunately, the weak ones, they fail completely, but I'm not going into that. But he has been cast out. That's already a reciprocal action. He's been cast out from creation. He passed out from the vicinity of God, and he can never return to where the other archangels are. He stands somewhere outside in darkness, all alone, and if he is lucky, he succeeds in leading humanity into destruction. He's definitely succeeded so far pretty well, but he is really, you see the reciprocal action. He's all on his own. He stands outside, below creation. He's not himself in creation, and that is already the reciprocal action. He's not an angel anymore. He's lost because he's not swinging in the will anymore. The Grail Message, the Grail Message shows that quite clear. Then you just have to think this state where he is now, that is reciprocal action. He has lost his status as an archangel. He's in fact not an angel anymore. He has become a spirit, but this is too much to go into in such a radio program. For if a person wants to find out knowledge about such things, the Grail Message tells enough of those things, enough what we need to know and what is useful for us to know to go to find our way back to the light. And yes, Lucifer is punished, and he has been, the reciprocal action has put him into a place where he never will. It's quite terrible, in fact. The way back into the vicinity of God, to the other archangel, is barred forever for him. He will not be able to go back.
And thank you for that, Brother Rainer. What about his power to act? Is it now limited now? Can he still, because he was basically tempting man, and is he still able to do that? Because you say he's fallen out, he cannot come anywhere within the vicinity of God. So, is his power now also limited because of his action?
This is, if one, today it seems he's ruling the day, and in fact he is ruling the day, and his, how can I say, his army of people, human beings, serve him without knowing, and those human beings serving him, of course, have the say today. But reality, they interact with the will of God, and what is being created is a state of chaos and destruction and despair. Human beings might not realize at the moment, because they are spiritually deaf and blind, that we are in a desperate situation. But there are also lots of people, especially artists, who have described the spiritual state of humanity, especially in Western culture, and the transcendental state, they call it often, and it is a state of utter despair. Now, what I want to say? But we are now in a position, Lucifer, although he still exists and never can be killed, or never can be annihilated, he's got eternal life, he's an archangel, he's a fallen archangel. That fallen is the reciprocal action. He is fallen. That is an unbelievable thing. From the vicinity of God, below the gross material world, and there he will stay. But outside of the material world. And at the moment, he's actually bound. So he cannot act and interfere actively anymore. So we have been helped immensely at the moment, and we should not despair if it seems the darkness is overwhelming, or the darkness rules the day. Of course it rules the day, and it is said that the Antichrist or Lucifer will raise his head. But as far as I know, and what I read from the Grail Message, I think he's already bound, and he has not a real power anymore. What happens now is just people knowingly and unknowingly, mostly unknowingly, they do not know that they follow the Lucifer principle, which is hatred against the light, hatred against the truth, hatred against God, and hatred against all the human beings which try to follow God or try to find the divine will again. But we should not be dismayed in this state. As soon as you are in tune with the will of God, then behind you is the power which is invincible. So we can be quite calm and be quite objective and have every reason to be not afraid. It is, if you listen to the will of God and find it and perceive it inside you, and if you are the smallest farmer somewhere, or you have a very, it doesn't matter, in that case you are stronger than anything. Because if you stay in the will of God, the power of God is with you, and you will be invincible. And I think today the big question for the human being is, do you side with the darkness or do you side with the light? Do you become a warrior of the light or do you become a warrior of the darkness? But
Thank you.
with the light we have the power of God with you, and with the darkness you have nothing, because Lucifer is bound at the moment. And as we said before very clearly, as Brother Gregory said very clearly, all the power Lucifer has comes also from God. And because he's directing it into unclean channels, it's weakened. And so he will lose. And so it's, in a way, it's, we live in very dark times and darkness rules, but we have every possibility. It is open to us to step out of it and be victorious and serve the light and become warriors of the light.
Thank you, Brother Rainer. I've got a question from another listener now. Again, it's about 10 minutes ago they sent this question. And this is a topic about masculinity and femininity, and so the lady, the person who sent the question, her name is Maria, and this is the question. And I'm going to just ask whoever thinks or is happy to answer this question, if they just come forward and say it. So either Brother Rainer, Gregory, or Brother Femi. So this is the question. So how do you back up the role of the woman in Scriptures? Why should I believe you? Do women really understand their role? Masculinity may not be the right word, as masculinity is not exclusive to men. So women are to lead. Clarify. So let me just read this again. I'm just going to read it exactly as it is by the listener. Okay. So how do you back up the role of the woman in Scriptures? Why should I believe you? Do women really understand their role? I think this is like two-part question. So do women really understand their role? And then the second part of it, masculinity may not be the right word, as masculinity is not exclusive to men. So women are to lead. Clarify. I don't know if that makes sense.
It actually seems as if there are 4 parts to the question.
Maybe yes, even 4 parts. So let's break it down.
Yeah. So part one.
Part one
is saying, how do you back up the role of the woman in the Scriptures?
Yes.
So that's how I see the first part of it. The second part is then asking, do women really understand their role?
Yes.
The third part is basically making a statement that masculinity does not refer to men alone, that it's not exclusive to men. And the final part is basically asking that, are women meant to lead? So that's how I say the 4 parts to the question.
So, Brother Femi, would you like to take that on?
Well, if we look at the first part, which says, so how do you back up the role of the woman in the Scriptures? I do not quite know what the questioner has in mind with that statement, but
yes.
If we look at the Scriptures, whether we look at the Old Testament or the New Testament, the role as written the role that the woman has always provided in both instances has always been very clearly more of a guiding spiritual role. So if we look at all the women that were there at the time of Jesus Christ, of course we know that the disciples that Jesus Christ had were all essentially male disciples, but that is a reflection of the nature of the work that they had to do. The work they had to do was more of an outward earthly role of making the truth known to the masses, and that is a task that fundamentally is more aligned with the nature of a man in terms of how creation positions the man. The woman is more of a finer nature and more of a guide to the man in fulfilling that role that has been assigned to him by
If I can just come in there, they say women's intuition, it's like women's intuition is sharper than men. Is that what you're referring to about guiding? Is it that women have this sharp intuition compared to men?
I think that that statement is really a reflection of the reality that women have a much more refined ability to connect to all that which is spiritual, and therefore they're able to perceive things better and clearer than men. Men, by their nature, tend to be more of the earth and more physical in the way they go about fulfilling their activities. So again, when the questioner talks about masculinity and femininity, I'm not sure in what context the questioner is asking the question, but the reality is masculinity is aligned to being a male, whilst femininity is aligned to being a female. There are very specific attributes that a man is expected to have, just like there are attributes that a woman is expected to have as well. So a very significant one, for instance, is when we're talking about birth. A man in 1 billion years will never be able to have a child, because the process of pregnancy and birth demands that the feminine, the female, that is the carrier of the physical body that will eventually become a human being, must be able to absorb a spirit, a soul, that is seeking the opportunity to incarnate on earth into that body. A man will never be able to do that because he does not have the spiritual endowment to be able to fulfill that role. And so even with modern science, even if a man were to be able to carry a physical body, he would never be able to attract a soul into that body. And that is part of the examples of where the woman is actually spiritually superior to the man. Masculinity, therefore, we need to be very clear about that, is a word that is very much aligned to being male, whilst femininity is aligned to being female. Of course, in the world that we live in today, where everything has been completely mushed up, it is very easy to go down the route of saying it doesn't really matter. You may be male, but you could be feminine, or you can be female, and you could be masculine. That is a reflection of part of the distortion that exists in our world today. The reality is those distortions is what has brought us to where we are collectively today as a human species. And as has been said by some of the other speakers, we do not have much time to be able to get ourselves back to the right path.
Thank you, Brother Femi. Just one more point that the Maria who asked this question, or long question, and one aspect of her question was, do women really understand their role? So we have said that women are finer or let's say sharper, and they're supposed to lead man. But do the women really know what is their role?
Sorry, very quickly.
Okay, Brother Gregory, go ahead.
I was going to say,
only the woman who stands at her post, who is fully conscious of her responsibility, can lead. Else, forget about it. So not every woman, but only the woman who is naturally conscious of her responsibility, of her task in creation. Only that woman can lead. All else will go below. So it's not that because the woman is there and therefore no. There is a task, or there are tasks which need to be fulfilled. And in the complementary nature of things within creation, she is first. And there, because she has been endowed with the intuitive abilities which are sharper than the man who has to deal with the physical realities. And because of that, the man is coarser, whereas the woman is finer because of her innate abilities. If, however, these abilities are not used for what they are meant for, then the quagmire we are in is the result, and things could go deeper.
Thank you, Brother Gregory. That's exactly what I wanted to point out, that the world of today, there's this feminism, there's equality, and all these different movements, and what we are saying, the Grail Message tells us how a man or woman should be. There's quite a difference in the thinking of today's people, mankind, or humanity, than what the Grail Message is saying, because, like you say, unless the woman stands in the right way and using her abilities properly, only that woman can know what is her role, and similarly for what man is his role. But if you just follow what is happening generally in the world, with this fight of equality and feminism, whatever it is, they all, which is based not on the natural laws and the structures that we have been told, we know from the Grail Message. So it's like unless you have the knowledge of how it's meant to be, you're only going to get lost, basically. So thank you very much for that, Brother Gregory. The next presenter is still not here yet, and I just thought we should, just before we wrap up quickly, I just wanted to say, is there anything anybody wants to read out from the Grail Message, another bit for the listeners regarding for the topic tonight, light and darkness? Is there anybody wants to?
I think there was another.
Okay, you think there's a further? Well, she was.
That was very important because
okay.
the person said, I think.
Okay, yes, sorry, the last part of the question. Okay, so let me just go to that. So the last part of the question from Maria, the listener, is so women are to lead, and then she's saying, okay, sorry, okay, this is other question. Yes, this is also from Maria. This is actually the discussion about Lucifer. So I think she's making this statement, which following on from what Brother Rainer was talking about, Lucifer being tied. So she's saying, I think he's already bound. This is to Lucifer. I think he's already bound from what I have read in the Grail Message,
which is what Brother Rainer
and what Brother Rainer was saying, that Lucifer is tied. So he himself, Lucifer, can't do anything, but people unknowingly, or maybe they knowingly, are still at the effect of Lucifer's temptations and so on. And so they are, at this time we are in darkness, as Brother Reiner has said. So although Lucifer himself is not leading, and not tempting now because he's died, but the effects that he has put out are still having the effect on us humanity.
But the question is actually very specific, because Brother Reiner said he thinks that Lucifer is already bound, and the questioner is asking, is he or not?
Okay, is he bound or not?
Or not, exactly. That's the actual question.
Okay.
So Brother Reiner probably might want to clarify what he meant.
Okay, so Brother Reiner, I don't know if you've been listening to what I've just said there. So the lady is trying to ask, or not trying to ask, is asking, is Lucifer actually bound or not? That's to Brother Reiner.
Well, she read it herself in the Grail Message.
Yes.
And
No.
So I
she
just
didn't
simply
read
say
it.
yes.
No, she's saying...
She's referring to what you said.
But she has got the Grail Message.
No, she said break message, and then she's basically correcting herself that it's the Grail Message she meant, not the break message.
Yes, okay. Okay, so she's... Okay, so maybe let's not assume anything.
Because he said,
okay,
I think
right. So we're not going to assume, Brother Reiner, we're not going to assume that this lady Maria has read the Grail Message. She's just quoting that you are reading the Grail Message, and you are saying, or she wants you to confirm from the Grail Message whether Lucifer is bound or not. That's what she's asking.
Yes, well, I confirm it here with Lucifer has been bound by Parzival. Now, whoever Parzival is, Maria should just read the Grail Message to lift that mystery. There's a mystery about the Grail Message. It doesn't say who the author is. It lets the reader himself discover the author. And that author of the Grail Message definitely says Lucifer has been bound, and he is bound now. Of course, a human being cannot bind him. No one can oppose him except someone stronger than him. But who that is, I let the reader, I let Maria find out. And of course the other question she asked, is there something in the scriptures about the role of woman? Well, there's been lots in literature, and literature has somehow replaced religion in Europe. And but I'm not going into this, but I just want to mention that for example, in the Muslim community, our Muslim brothers, many think, oh, the woman is in an awful condition there, and it's definitely true. Everything has been reversed and distorted in that religion, and the people there really have to find the will of God again, as Islam says. And but let us remember, at the time Muhammad was there, the people had about 20 women. They had all unlimited. So Muhammad really restricted the number, of wives a man could have to 4, and he would have tried to restrict it to 1, but due to political pressures and the prevailing attitudes, he could not do that. So already you see it's being reduced. It's not that man can avail himself with 20 women or an unlimited number according to his wealth, and then exploit the sexual pleasures women provide. And also that Alina, his wife, his youngest wife, really, she introduced the veil, and the veil was for protection of the women. And if you think of the veil, why if something needs to be protected from the gazes of human beings, it's something which is pure, and and through the vicinity of man it would become dirty, and that already shows indirectly the place of man. Man, with his present attitude, was not worthy to see a woman, and to avoid that he would attack her with thoughts which cling to her, or dirty thoughts, she was protected through the veil. That was something that indirectly says quite clearly the woman is something higher and something purer, and it needs protection to the veil. Also the houses which Muhammad introduced, those women houses, the women could go into it, but the men could not enter those houses. Again, the woman was protected. So Muhammad in a way wanted to lift and protect the woman from the pulling down influence of the male part of the population. The woman could go anywhere in that society under Muhammad. Only the men, but she had her retreats so that she could protect it. And from this indirectly you see that the woman was something very special which needed to be protected from the dirty hands of men and from lecherous thoughts and from this whole attitude that the woman is just there for the pleasure of the male. She's definitely not there for the pleasure of the male only. Of course, that does not mean that sexual pleasure is wrong. We need it at times, and it's something quite. We need it at times. That's enough. And but here indirectly you see that he tried to fight for the role of woman. Of course, it was then in Christianity. I actually am not aware of anything in those scriptures. Only indirectly with Adam and Eve, and that of course was one of the things Lucifer tried to lead humanity, and of course woman into a wrong path. Let's look at the apple she offered Adam. She just offered it. The apple was the symbol of the attraction. Of the sexual attraction too, of the attraction and the sexual attraction, and it was this juicy apple, and she became aware of this, and this is of her attractive powers. And Adam took the apple. That means he accepted that new role of woman, that she was conscious of her attractive powers over men. And the conscious using, the calculating usage of her attractive power was of course a kind of fall for woman. She should not use it for that way, or in this way. And today we have now everyone knows the Me Too campaign, and that change, using her attractive powers to get a role in a film or something. Of course, it's not only the man, but of course the man has become a real brute. And in the course of the centuries, in the course of the thousands of years which have passed, and but what really Lucifer tried to do is to instill that wrong principle into women. Do not care anymore primarily for the will of, try to find out the will of the light with your intuition, but tune into all kinds of other streams which are around you. She liked to do that which fed her vanity, like we know that all the fashion stuff and things women run after, and which is just useless things most of the time. But that was already that Lucifer tried to win woman. He did that consciously because he knew, if I get woman and can derail her or tempt her from the right path, I've practically humanity, I've won humanity. And so indirectly also here, that Lucifer attacked, brought woman to that wrong usage of her attractive powers, to use it in a calculating way to achieve her own ends, already shows indirectly how important woman is. And and nowadays we have to know, of course, much more precisely what the role of a woman is, and how we can shape society accordingly, and so that the woman can fulfill her role here. And we will, of course, need societal changes to re-establish woman in her rightful role. But of course we need the women to go on and to start going onto that way to the light. The men will follow. Of course, it's the fault of both. It's not only the fault of the women. It's like Adam accepted, he's as much as at fault as the woman. He was not forced to accept it. He could say, no, I don't want a woman who uses her sexual attractiveness, and I want a woman who is a real woman. And so man is not one little bit less guilty, but definitely the primary task is we have to become the new woman, must emerge out of this chaos here, and with it the new man will emerge, and that will be a real gentleman who deserves that man, and who always approaches a woman in a very respectful way, because he knows what woman is, and that he would be nothing without woman.
Thank you, Brother Rainer. I'm going to just say this one last question, and we are well beyond our normal time for the end of the show. So I'm just going to say this one question from a listener, following from what you have said, Brother Rainer. The question is, or it's a point actually, maybe not a question. Some men are weak, but won't admit it. They won't admit it, and need a strong woman. So I don't know if anybody would like to respond to that. Brother Rainer, would you like to respond to that? Some men are weak, but won't admit it, and need a strong woman.
Yes, of course.
Sorry, may I just...
Okay,
quickly.
Brother Gregory, you would like to say something?
No, these sort of questions, some men are weak, these are very petty, and some need a strong woman. I'm sorry, these are very petty questions, because we are talking here spiritually. Who is to determine which man is weak and which person needs a strong woman? Spiritual questions are precise. Let's send good thoughts to those who are weak so that they will become strong. And the power that is passed on can come from anyone. So let's not, I think it's becoming petty, say some people are weak, they need somebody to do this and all that. And that is my view about this particular type of questions. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Let's wrap up now. So I'm going to ask each of us, first, is there anybody who wants to read something further?
Brother Rana probably wants
Brother Rani, would you like to carry on with something? Or
before Mr.
Do we still have time?
well, let's say I can give you maybe 3 minutes. Is it possible to answer it in 3 minutes?
Okay,
And
just okay. If I'm like Maria said, there are women who behave more in a masculine way, and there are women which behave less and there are also men who behave more in a feminine way. And of course, it is in a way one can say it looks like a mixture in everyone. And there's the gentleman, the sensitive man who likes art, and there's rougher men, no doubt. And of course, the secret why a man can be drawn to a strong woman are, of course, that is explained in the Grail Message most, and I don't want to go to it, but this man itself is an effeminate man will look for a more masculine woman, and there's a kind of homogeneity in a little bit the way they act. The homogeneity lies in that the man does not act quite as a man, but is a little bit effeminate, and that's why the language has coined that word effeminate, and that man and that woman, she's not quite feminine. Here we say feminine and not effeminate, but she's more masculine in her way. And of course, there's a kind of attraction, and I hope that this last question of the last person is answered in that way, or I do not know exactly the background of the question, but I think there's so many things to say, but also one point to what is being said in the feminist movement, that we can choose our gender freely. Well, that's of course complete nonsense. There's still the feminine and the masculine. Now it can be that a man likes another man, and it can be that a woman is lesbian, or it can be that some person feels, oh, I'm in the wrong body, I have the wrong sex, and he goes into that terrible process. You just don't choose it like a type of chocolate in a shop. It's a big step that person does to go through all the pain of being operated on and have a sex change. But of course, in the Grail Message, and we live in a confusion there, and the Grail, but it's always male and female. It goes in this spectrum, all of there. If we could, and if to say there are an unlimited number of genders is absolutely nonsense. If you show me someone who falls in love with a light switch and marries a light switch, then I believe that any gender is possible. But at the moment, it is only man and woman, and all the confusion lies in those two poles. I've no one seen falling in love with a light switch or falling in love with my pocket calculator. So that's my point just to the current discussion of feminism at the moment.
Thank you, Brother Rainer. Brother Femi, is there something you wanted to read from the Grail Message for the listeners?
Yeah, just a paragraph or two.
Okay, and then we're going to wrap up after that.
Again, this is from the lecture, Let There Be Light. And it says, it is only the human spirit's capacity for free decisions which brought about his decline and fall. Had he always heeded and followed the laws in creation, there could have been nothing but ascent, happiness, and peace for him. For that is how these laws wish it to be. When he disregards them, he naturally bumps against them, stumbles, and falls. In accordance with the nature and laws of the radiations of God, nothing but happiness and joy was bound to ensue for all those becoming conscious therewith. It simply could not be otherwise, because any darkness is altogether foreign and incomprehensible to the light itself.
Thank you very much, Brother Femi. Dear listeners, thank you for joining us tonight. The topic was light and darkness. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'm now going to ask each of my colleagues to say goodbye. So, Brother Femi, what would you like to say to the listeners?
Well, thank you for listening. It was a fairly involved session that we had this evening. But the main thing that I would like to leave with the listeners is to dwell on the essence of light, and in all that we do, to strive to create harmony and joy. Thank you.
Thank you. Brother Rainer, anything you'd like to say to the listeners?
No, for me it's very simple. Goodbye, and till next week.
Thank you. And Brother Gregory?
Well, to the listener, never ever take our words for it. Go and examine the message yourself. Full stop.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners, for joining us. Just to remind you, if you want to get a copy of the Grail Message or find out more, you can Google, of course, or you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'm going to spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. I wish you all a great week and would love you to join us next Tuesday when we have the topic of the hidden connections determine our earth life. That's the topic for next Tuesday. So I wish you all a great week. God bless.